Good evening, everybody. Breaking tonight, the state of Texas is offering a reward for any information on the murder of a Border Patrol agent who was reportedly beaten to death by illegal immigrants throwing rocks. President Trump says it's another example of why we need the border wall. So why are GOP congressional leaders blocking the building of that wall, despite the clear and present danger posed by the drug cartels, the disappearance of tens of thousands in Mexico, the murders of 100,000 people a year there, the transport of most of the amphetamines, marijuana, heroin, and cocaine consumed in the United States coming across that border? How do Speaker Ryan and Leader McConnell sleep at night? Also tonight, new sexual harassment allegations ranging from the world of politics to media, and most of the accused are liberals and leftists. 8 women now accusing TV icon Charlie Rose of sexually harassing them, and a second woman accusing Democratic Senator Al Franken of groping her while they posed for a photo in 2010. The same GOP Senate leadership that immediately called for Judge Roy Moore's withdrawal from the Alabama Senate race hasn't yet called for the senator from Minnesota to resign. We'll take a look at the imbalance in the cases of harassment and worse. And President Trump today declaring North Korea to be a state sponsor of terrorism. President Trump calling the move part of his commitment to apply maximum pressure on the murderous regime. We take all of that up here tonight. Our top story, a manhunt underway in southwest Texas after a Border Patrol agent was murdered and his partner seriously wounded while on patrol in the state's Big Bend sector. The agent and his partner were responding to activity in the Van Horn Station area Sunday when they were apparently ambushed by illegal immigrants who attacked them with rocks. Fox News correspondent Casey Stiegel is live in Dallas with our report.
Federal law enforcement agents say they're currently working to piece together a timeline of events to gain a better understanding of what exactly happened in this rural Texas town over the weekend.
We lost a Border Patrol officer just yesterday, and another one was brutally beaten and badly hurt.
According to Customs and Border Protection, Agent Rogelio Martinez was out patrolling the Big Bend sector along the Texas-Mexico border. Officials say he was working alongside his partner when they responded to a call off Interstate 10 and somehow got into trouble. Moments later, one of the agents came over the scanner saying they'd been hurt and needed help. Both men were transported to an area hospital where Agent Martinez died from his injuries.
We talk about the wall, we're going to have the wall.
The recent violence prompted President Trump to once again tout why he thinks it's important to secure the U.S. border with Mexico. At today's White House cabinet meeting, the president talked about how his wall plan will help curtail violent crimes like this, among others.
We need it. That's rough territory. That's where the drugs are coming in. A lot of things are happening along the border, the southern border, and we're going to straighten it out.
The FBI has confirmed Agent Martinez and his partner did not come under fire, but would not elaborate on how the agents were attacked. Representatives with the National Border Patrol Council say rocks were used against the agents, but no federal sources will confirm that. And back out here live in Dallas tonight, we can tell you that Agent Martinez was 36 years old, and he had been a Border Patrol agent for about 4 years or so. According to Customs and Border Protection, 39 agents now have been killed in the line of duty since 2003 with that agency. Lou?
And violence against the Border Patrol up 60% so far this year as well. And Casey, the frustration is absolutely universal. Neither the local Border Patrol, no part of Homeland Security are telling us what happened to these agents. And I have never seen that happen before. And I have to say, it is an extraordinary abuse against the public's right to know, and we will get to the bottom of it. I have to tell you tonight, I am absolutely furious that the Border Patrol will not stand up and tell us how that Border Patrol officer was murdered. Casey, thanks so much.
We're certainly going to keep asking the questions, Lou, because, it is unusual for us to not know what the specifics are just yet. So we're going to keep, of course, asking those questions, and we'll let you know when we get more.
Appreciate it so much, Casey. Thank you very much. Always a great job of reporting, Casey Stegall. Turning now to the sexual harassment allegations that have rocked Hollywood politics, media, big business. More accusers, new accusers, have now emerged against two prominent Democrats, Senator Al Franken and former President Bill Clinton. Fox News chief congressional correspondent Mike Emanuel with our report.
A second woman has come forward accusing Minnesota Senator Al Franken of inappropriately grabbing her bottom at the Minnesota State Fair in 2010. The alleged incident with Lindsay Menz was when Franken was a senator, unlike the first accusation from radio news anchor Leanne Tweeden. Menz tweeted about it, saying Franken, quote, grabbed me, and that she felt violated and embarrassed. A leading Senate Republican didn't want to get ahead of the facts.
Obviously, I think that's going to be taken up by the Ethics Committee, and I'll let them begin the process. I share everyone else's view on it, and that's unacceptable.
At the White House, Kellyanne Conway took this swipe today.
The media were really concerned about all these allegations, and that's what this was truly about, and the Democrats. Al Franken would be on the ash heap of bygone, half-funny comedians. He wouldn't be here in Capitol Hill.
Franken told CNN he didn't remember taking the photo and that he felt badly that Menz left, quote, feeling disrespected.
There is despicable, ugly behavior across the country. And men and women together, here we are, a women's panel. This isn't going to get fixed. Men have wives, sisters, daughters, friends, families.
The focus on Franken has caused some Democrats to revisit Bill Clinton's scandals. The Daily Mail reported Clinton is facing new accusations of sexual assault after he left office in the early 2000s. Spokesmen for the Clintons have attacked Daily Mail's Ed Klein as being a sad man and a pathetic liar. New York Times political reporter Glenn Thrush has been accused of sexual misconduct, with the Times saying, quote, we intend to fully investigate, and while we do, Glenn will be suspended. A prominent California Democrat is resigning his leadership post and scrapping his re-election campaign. A staffer accused Assembly Majority Whip Raul Bocanegra of putting his hands inside her blouse, with a total of 6 women making sexual harassment allegations. And former Oklahoma Republican State Senator Ralph Shorty is expected to plead guilty after he offered to pay a 17-year-old boy for sexual stuff in March. Lou?
Mike, thank you very much. Mike Emanuel reporting. Well, the woman accusing Judge Roy Moore of sexually molesting her when she was 14 is speaking out about why she waited decades to come forward with her story. Fox News correspondent in Birmingham, Alabama, with our report, Jonathan Sari.
He basically laid out some blankets on the floor of his living room and proceeded to seduce me.
Speaking out on NBC's Today Show, Lee Korfman repeated allegations, first reported by the Washington Post, that Roy Moore fondled her when she was in her early teens.
He tried to get me to touch him as well, and at that point I pulled back and said that I was not comfortable, and I got dressed and he took me home. But I was a 14-year-old child trying to play in an adult's world, and he was 32 years old.
Thank you very much.
Having denied all accusations of sexual impropriety, Moore is now focused on attacking his Democratic opponent as being too liberal. Commenting on the recent death of a Border Patrol agent in Texas, Moore tweeted, Doug Jones in the Senate equals no wall. No wall equals more senseless bloodshed. We must build the wall to protect Americans now.
I appreciate it. No worries.
Jones insists his positions on health care and the economy are mainstream and points to endorsements from Alabama Media Group, which owns the state's 3 largest newspapers, all urging voters to reject Roy Moore.
Your thoughts on Roy Moore, Mr. President?
After his remarks at a cabinet meeting, President Trump refused to answer reporter questions on the Alabama race.
Thank you so very much.
But speaking on Fox and Friends, Kellyanne Conway warned a vote for Moore's opponent could jeopardize the president's agenda.
So vote Roy Moore?
I'm telling you that we want the votes in the Senate to get this tax bill through.
Conway's statement, an apparent departure from her comments last week.
The incontrovertible principle is that there's no Senate seat that's worth more than a child.
At this afternoon's White House briefing, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said the president still believes the people of Alabama should be the ones picking their next senator. Meanwhile, an advisor to the Moore campaign, speaking on background, tells Fox News while the campaign did take a hit as a result of all the intense media scrutiny over the past week, that internal polling suggests Moore is still leading by about 5 points. Lou?
Jonathan, thank you very much. Jonathan Sari reporting. Two more left-wing media types today joining the growing list of prominent men facing sexual abuse allegations. 8 women accusing veteran TV host and CBS anchor Charlie Rose of harassing them, according to the reporting of the Washington Post. The allegations range from lewd phone calls to walking around naked in their presence and groping the women. CBS, PBS, and Bloomberg have all suspended Rose as a result. Meanwhile, the New York Times suspended reporter Glenn Thrush. That over reports he made unwanted advances towards young female reporters, often while he was drunk. And of course, there are the Hollywood heavyweights who are under fire. Serial groper, apparently, Harvey Weinstein, to actor Kevin Spacey. And the numbers of accusers are growing. Both are accused of multiple offenses. Louis C.K. went from being a comedian to being a punchline when 5 women came forward to accuse him of sexual misconduct. And Republicans certainly not immune, although they are fewer numbers in number. Former President George H.W. Bush under fire for grabbing women inappropriately. There are at least 4 Republican state lawmakers who face accusations as well. More appalling when you realize these men who can't keep their hands to themselves are costing all of us money as well. That's because of the Congress and the Senate. The Congress has handed out nearly $1 million over the past year from a taxpayer fund. It's a slush fund, really, to settle workplace complaints, and we don't even get to know whose harassment we're paying for. We take it all up with Fox legal analyst Greg Jarrett coming up here in just moments. We're coming right back with that and much, much more. Stay with us. Eric Trump calling for a second special counsel to investigate crooked Hillary Clinton's web of corruption.
Somebody gave Hillary Clinton, right, a Secretary of State at the time, $145 million for her foundation for nothing. I mean, do people really believe that? And to me, it's such a travesty that that's not being investigated.
Why is the Justice Department stalling, ignoring the overwhelming evidence of Clinton corruption? We take that up with Greg Jarrett. And maximum pressure on North Korea. President Trump declares the murderous regime a state sponsor of terror. We'll have much more on the rising tensions straight ahead. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Breaking news tonight. The Justice Department tonight is suing AT&T to block its planned merger of Time Warner. The Department of Justice says the proposed $85 billion merger violates antitrust laws and arguing it would, quote, greatly harm American consumers. They're going to court. President Trump announced his opposition to that deal just shortly after it was announced back in October a year ago. Confusion and consternation over where Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation is going, and it's only getting worse these days. Mueller giving the impression now the probe may be over soon, but at the same time, he has now subpoenaed an extensive, wide range of documents from the Justice Department. Hard to imagine a more mixed, confused, or deceptive set of signals, isn't it? President Trump's lead attorney, Ty Cobb, issued the following statement based on his interpretation of the communications, saying, quote, the White House is optimistic that the voluntary interviews of White House personnel by the Office of Special Counsel may be concluded shortly after Thanksgiving. But the latest reports indicate Mueller is now focusing on President Trump's dismissal of former FBI Director James Comey and essentially carrying out a separate investigation into many of the same justice officials who have the responsibility to oversee the conduct and activities of the special counsel. Joining me now to help us sort it all out, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Greg, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Let's start with the special counsel, one of your very favorite people. This is, to me, it is a gross absurdity in his conduct and the signals he's sending.
It's insane for him to now be subpoenaing documents from his own employer, and he will invariably have to interview his own boss, Rod Rosenstein, who authored the memo to fire Comey. So you've got Rosenstein as both a witness and a prosecutor and the ultimate judge on whether charges would be brought for obstruction of justice, which doesn't exist. The president has the right to hire and fire anybody in the executive branch, including Comey. But it does underscore, as you say, the absurdity of it all.
And the absurdity is compounded when you consider the FBI and the Justice Department officials saying they haven't been able to verify anything about the basic mission of Mueller, which is collusion with the Russians.
Right.
An acknowledgement by the investigatory agencies and officials that they haven't been able to do anything, find anything, and yet they plod on.
It's not a crime to talk to a Russian, as you and I have talked about on several occasions. It is a crime to pay money to Russians for a dossier on your political opponent. That's a crime under federal law. It's also a crime for Hillary Clinton to have, if she did, use her public office to confer a benefit to the Russians in exchange for money in the Uranium One deal.
Could you excuse me just a moment? I want to tell our producers to put a call through to the special counsel right now. I think we have evidence of a crime, and I'm sure that he would not want to miss an opportunity to investigate it if we could put that through. Go ahead.
He won't pay attention. He's oblivious, which is all the more reason why Jeff Sessions should appoint a second special counsel to investigate.
Each name you mention creates a higher temperature. I mean, Sessions is doing ostensibly, maybe I pray that I will be proved utterly wrong, but it doesn't seem he's doing anything to investigate wrongdoing, which I used to think was the job of the top law enforcement officer of this country.
Well, and that one is a no-brainer, for goodness sakes. I've been writing about it for 13 months, the Uranium One deal. There's a plethora of evidence to justify a Department of Justice investigation in earnest, or if you can't do it, Mr. Sessions, because you recused yourself from anything related to Hillary, appoint a second special counsel.
Well, how about this? Speaking of no-brainers, Lois Lerner is now seeking to seal the records of her conduct and her statements to that conduct forever. Forever. A public employee, a government employee. I am so sick of this government, the federal government, the deep state, you name it, whatever you want to call it, refusing to acknowledge the public's right to know. And that's what this amounts to, time and time again.
So far, she's being protected by a federal judge, Michael R. Barrett, but I suspect that won't last for very long. Why? There's no clear and imminent danger to Lois Lerner. She hasn't demonstrated that, and the government has admitted that she was lying and deceptive, that she...
So why isn't she being prosecuted?
Well, she should have been, but the Obama Department of Justice didn't prosecute her.
But we're in November,
yeah,
2017.
Now you're talking about Jeff Sessions, the feckless Sessions.
I'm, by the way, very adroit myself. I'm talking about Rod Rosenstein. Rod, get to work. Doesn't work, does it?
His allegiance has always been to liberal Democrats. His mentor was Barbara Mikulski. Enough said.
I want to take up very quickly the president a year ago saying that he thought that the idea of an AT&T Time Warner merger was a very bad idea.
He was right.
His Department of Justice is following through on that, and the CEO of AT&T came out today and said, "My God, we're going to have CNN," and basically threw down against the federal government. I have never seen a CEO be so reckless, so ignorant. He's wasting shareholder money by the bucket, because this is going to be a great way to have the Justice Department insist that he spend about 5 years in court fighting this deal.
Absolutely. And I wrote a column a year ago when the merger was announced that it probably wouldn't go through because it violates antitrust law. Their defense is, oh, it's a vertical merger, as if that's innocuous and okay. No, it's not. If it's a mega merger, you can crowd out your competitors. There's nothing to stop a merged AT&T and Time Warner of saying, for example, Lou Dobbs, if you want HBO, drop your provider. You've got to be an AT&T customer. And that is the kind of thing that the Justice Department intends to stop.
And it's not unheard of in a merger, a combination like this, for the Justice Department to exact constraints on the part of the resulting entity to say, you know, we're going to be absolutely fair with our news properties. We're going to preserve that independence. Right. I didn't see Stevenson, the CEO, offering that up. As a matter of fact, when I say that I thought he was foolish and unbelievably arrogant today, I believe the video of him making those statements about CNN can be used in court against the interest of AT&T. Sure. And he's got the general counsel and his lead attorney on either side of him, and they just let him, you know, give full vent.
Were I his lawyer, I would have told him to shut up.
Yeah.
You're just making it worse.
You know, I've tried that with CEOs myself. It didn't always work out exactly as I planned. Greg Jarrett, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. On Wall Street, stocks closing higher. The Dow up 72 points, the S&P up 3, and the Nasdaq up 8. Volume on the big board, light trading, just under 3 billion shares. Officials in Nebraska voting to approve the Keystone XL Pipeline's route. The last big regulatory hurdle for the project, a victory for President Trump and the American economy. A reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast, on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, Special Counsel Robert Mueller requesting more documents from the DOJ. Hunting. Or were they hinting? We'll find out. A witch hint. Could be. I'll have a few thoughts next. Stay with us. A few thoughts now on what has been a little confounding and conflicted activity on the part of the special counsel, Robert Mueller, and his now 6-month investigation. Mueller's mandate, when he was appointed back in May by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, was, quote, a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 election, end quote. Now, let's just stop here for a second. Just pause for a moment and think we've got these 16 agencies whose job it is to tell us what the Russians were doing. We don't need a special counsel for that. Yet Mueller's search for answers has been utterly futile in that regard. And what we do know is Mueller and his team of now 17 prosecutors, aided by the left-wing national media, have made it clear they're intent on widening their investigations despite absolutely no evidence. By the way, he's not alone here. That's also the case with the Senate Intelligence Agency, which is being led by the ranking Democrat, Mark Warner, not Richard Bure, the committee chairman, the Republican. And Mueller's 6-month witch hunt has yielded indictments against Paul Manafort and Rick Gates for money laundering and failure to register as foreign agents. That's the deal so far. That is the deal. Plus a guilty plea from low-level advisor of some sort, George Papadopoulos, for lying to the FBI. But we don't even know how much money Mueller has requested to spend on this witch hunt. There is no limit. In fact, Judicial Watch has filed a lawsuit against the Department of Justice for Mueller's budget. They won't answer. But it looks like it's going to be a lot. And now Mueller going after the very agency, the very department that has the responsibility to oversee his investigation. The special counsel requesting a wide range of documents now from, yes, the U.S. Justice Department. Now, if you think, as I do, that this is utter madness, that any officials or lawmakers who continue to permit this conduct by the special counsel, unlimited budget, unlimited time, no deadlines, no responsibility, no consequences. Well, the fact of the matter is we are nuts, in my opinion, to put up with these people who are nuts enough to tolerate a special counsel who seems hell-bent on upending the presidency of President Trump. That's just one man's view. The quotation of the evening, this one from George Bernard Shaw. He said this: "Power does not corrupt men. Fools, however, if they get into a position of power, corrupt power." A little different way to look at it, huh? We're coming right back. Stay with us. President Trump slams the Dems for obstructing historic tax cuts for hardworking Americans.
With the Democrats giving us no votes for tax cuts for purely political reasons, obstructionists, it will be up to the Republicans to come through for America.
Highly respected Congressman Mark Walker believes Trump's tax reform will boost economic growth more than ever. He joins us here next. And this daring athlete, taking his love of slacklining to the extreme, will show you his dauntless bravery high above railroad tracks right here next. Stay with us. Joining us tonight, Congressman Mark Walker. He's chairman of the Republican Study Committee, a member of the House Oversight Committee as well. Congressman, great to have you with us. And we hear there's progress being made on tax reform, tax cuts, and at the same time we heard the OMB director, Mulvaney, saying that he's willing, and the president obviously has approved his saying so, willing to talk about not repealing the individual mandate in Obamacare. That makes it a sticky proposition, doesn't it?
It makes it much more sticky, to use your terminology. It's very important. This is maybe our only one shot to be able to repeal a law. Think about this, a federal law, the only one on the books that literally requires American citizens to purchase a product from a private industry. Some of our Democrat friends have a struggle making the case for the individual mandate. I hope we don't miss out the opportunity. Our RSC is very committed in doing so.
Well, we're talking about over $300 billion, which can salve a lot of pain in the process necessary to get to a bill from both houses and through conference into the president's desk. Without it, where do you turn for such relief?
It's crucial that we get this done. You're exactly right. $340 billion over 10 years. It's a way that we can offset some of the tax reforms, the tax relief that we're offering. But it's very important philosophically, Lou, as some of our Democrat friends are pushing really hard against this. For 8 years under the Obama administration, in fact, he took $830 billion of the taxpayers' money to improve the economy. We went 8 years and never reached 3% growth. To anything close to that, you have to go back to the Great Depression, which was the 4 years longest term. Conversely, if you look at Ronald Reagan's era, we had 3% growth 6 of the 8 years, in 1 year even close to 7%. We are trying to say, hey, American people, here's your money back. You go improve the economy, as opposed to let's take more and see what the government can do. I believe we know the answer to that.
I do, and it seems like there are other answers that are so obvious, or should be, to members of Congress who still resist this president, the idea of tax cuts and tax reform. I prefer just the expression tax cuts. That has a magical, sort of tinkle in the air to me. I love it.
Yes.
But the idea that this president has presided over the greatest increase in the equities markets. The Dow has never moved this high in what is 10 months of a presidency ever. He has done extraordinary things. We've got 2 consecutive quarters of 3% or 3% plus growth. This is cause and effect, and only a damn fool would see it otherwise. But we're blessed to have a lot of damn fools that associate with you there on Capitol Hill. So I don't understand.
I was a pastor.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. I was just agreeing with you. I was a pastor for 18 years. Got so frustrated with myself that I actually left the ministry to serve in the U.S. Congress, because I don't understand it. When you have that kind of record numbers, and we're talking about all-time records, and I believe we're just getting started, why in the world wouldn't we get on board to continue to push through? This is not just a political argument, Lou. This is something that impacts everyday citizens. Every one of us in the House represents 700,000 to 800,000 people. This is good for the country, and it's time that we all get on board.
You know, I don't want to accuse you of anything, but it sounds to me like you didn't get over that you're not a Reformed pastor. It looks to me like you were just going where the sinners were.
Well, we'll make our own, I guess, statement as far as where the mission fields are in this country. Maybe D.C. is chief among that. But no, we're not trying to come across as holier than thou. But the point is this. The Democrats line up every single time there was a major issue. How many Democrats voted against Obamacare, the worst piece of legislation in mankind? Not a single one. But not only do we have 13, we had to pull some kind of kicking and screaming to get them across the finish line. This is one of the two major promises that we made. And if we can get the individual mandate, maybe you get partial credit for repealing what I would call the central nervous system of Obamacare. This is a mandate. And here's the number. 100,000 of these, 58% of these people who are forced to pay the fine make less than $100,000. These people are struggling, lower and middle income families, and the government is still putting a fine on top of these wonderful people. This is the moment that we've been fighting for, to repeal the individual mandate. I encourage the administration and Mick Mulvaney to stay strong. I know the House is going to stay strong on it as well when it comes back from the Senate.
Congressman, great to have you come with us tonight. Come back soon. We'll continue the discussion. I still think you're there just because of all those sinners. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lou. My privilege.
Thank you, Congressman Mark Walker. Please roll the video now and watch as this slackliner performs his extreme balancing act above a moving train in Brazil. Now, this is a peculiar deal, so you really have to. It's hard to imagine why he's doing this, but there it is. And you see the train moving, and you see him hanging over it. I have to say, it's a scary thing, but I'm not sure that we had the right perspective on it. He needed more credit for what he did there than the camera gave him. Up next, the Justice Department set to brief Congress on the FBI's Uranium One informant. And Clinton Cash author Peter Schweitzer, he's the one who started all of this on Uranium One. He joins us here next to tell us what he thinks of the doings to this point and whether or not they're going to lock her up. We'll be right back.